So you could see, I mean, with 6 different agencies, you could see the range of impact that COVID has had on the operations of these agencies. Some of it is positive, some of it is negative, some of it is uncertain. We don't know yet what the outcome of this is going to be, but it's clear that every organization, including ID for Africa, I mean, we are here in this family together on a different medium. We're adapting to deal with the crisis, but we're also adapting to deal with the new normals. Actually, one of the things that sort of leads into from Niall's question is trying to get the panel to help us assess really the impact, really the significance of this event. For example, often in history, when we have hindsight, when we look back, we have enough time, we can say, yes, now we can understand the size of this. I mean, we want to know, is this really basically an event which can be characterized as disruptive, that has convinced those who were sitting on the fence before that we need to make digital identity happen, and therefore this is one of those inflection points? Another way of saying it is that are we talking about essentially a wake-up call or a speed bump? If it's a wake-up call for us as a community, it means that something has happened in a very significant way. Or are we exaggerating, or are we overreacting? So I think I'd like to see what the panel thinks. And this is free for all. Just raise your hand and I will recognize you. And let's have an honest, open debate to say what we know, what we think, and what your vision can tell you. In absence of hindsight, do you think this event is going to be remembered as basically the event that changed everything? So anybody want to start? Vyjayanti.
Sure, I'll try to crack that. I do think it will be remembered. We may not all remember the small details. To be honest, even within the last 3 months, it's amazing to me how adaptive the human beings are. You know, the things that shocked me 3 months ago seem so normal now. But it has already disrupted so many things. I think even, for example, the format of this event, so many people are talking about, even if we get to a place where we have in-person meetings, we need to find ways to connect people who are not able to be connected. So a hybrid model of a virtual and in-person. We've seen unprecedented. I mean, you had the session just 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago with, 1,000 people or so.
Yes.
And the chat functions I thought were quite interesting because in a way it was much more interactive than it is when we're sitting in a conference room and all just watching a panel. People are watching the chat. Schools, the way that kids are learning, I think there's a lot to learn about the consequences of that. I have kids who are 14 and they have been adapting very quickly to new ways of learning. How the impact of that and how long this is going to be still yet to come. Colleges, universities, the business model is going to change. So health systems, again, personally, my husband is in a critical care, and the way that the hospitals had to respond so quickly, and now it's this sort of, what is the new normal? Do hospitals need to know to be ready for more COVID patients or existing patients that are not COVID, and what's that right balance of the rooms that are biocontainment rooms or not? I think for the work that we do, it has definitely accelerated the agenda, with no doubt. I think we are seeing countries realize how critical it is to have these digital foundations in place. Those countries, for example, Peru and India and Chile and Thailand, that had some of these digital foundations in place, were able to literally within a press of a button, within a few days of time, get cash assistance to people. Yes, none of these systems are perfect, and I think people will see in the news still exclusion, but it was far more efficient, reliable, accurate in terms of getting money not only to those who are actually the neediest, but also through accounts, right? So that it also has the other benefit of potentially increasing financial inclusion. So we see examples in India where within the month of May, 5 million new account holders, I believe, women who opened up accounts to receive payments. So I think so countries that didn't have these, and it's not overnight, right? It'll take years. Countries that don't necessarily have these, what we call the digital public goods stack, the ID, the payments, the social registries, the data interoperability with all of these with privacy embedded within them, because we can't forget the importance of these two pillars of inclusion, making sure people are included, but also trust. People need to trust these systems. That countries do want to accelerate building these digital platforms.
So you would argue that it was really a wake-up call for some people, don't you say?
Absolutely.
It was a wake-up call. Okay, great. I want to go to Cornelius. And then anybody else, please raise your hand if you want to continue on the theme.
Definitely, it was a wake-up call, right? I mean, it was a wake-up call because governance system, the state, and the health or depth of a state system was exposed. Certain narratives were exposed, actually, as such. The things you need to make your state function. The issue of public health, that public health is not only about having the most high-tech facilities, but public health for everyone. A state needs to know everybody who's in its territory, and all these barriers that they used to put in place. Suddenly there was a wake-up call to say, who is in your state and who is vulnerable? The fault line started to show in terms of inequality. And you know, as Vyjayanti has said, those who had systems in place, I'm going to take an example of children who were being detained. Those who had modernized their system and were doing online training of the children who were incarcerated, those who had digital system to follow these children, those who had their identity, were quickly able to release these children, right? And make sure that actually these children didn't get infected. Those who were not reforming their systems were left behind, right? They could not move faster. So it's a wake-up call that your government system, you need to reform your government system, and you need to address the inequality and the shocks and the fault lines, in your countries. If they don't address the fault line, everybody is affected. We have seen it. Care workers who were not respected have now respect. People never thought that teachers were care workers. Now the whole population, they see the importance a teacher play, not only for teaching and learning, but for taking care of their children. For us, actually, we can no longer know which children are affected in homes that are now shut off because they don't come to school. The debate, who would have thought actually that everybody would be watching statistician generals, they become pop star, okay, right? It's changed, right? All the debate about the data about the rates of death, the attributing these rates of death, the debates, all this kind of debates, all this, which were usually arcane scientific debates, are now part of the public debate.
Right. So it is a wake-up call, and I'm hearing you say that, but it's also going to be something that is going to alter the political will, or at least the development agenda is going to use that to make it clear to the political will of the countries that, if you don't do this, you will not preparing yourself for the future. Is it fair to characterize your statement in that light?
Yes, actually, now there's going to be a lot of pressure on political leaders to put these systems that we've been talking about in place, right?
Okay.
In fact, one of the things we have seen, Joseph, is that those countries, it's emerging evidence, it's still early, but those countries who had put in place systems to respond to public health emergencies fared better. So if you had invested, it's the same thing Vera is saying, if you had invested in your digital identity, if you had invested in your registration system, you are better able to know who to support, and you would not have this hidden population.
Okay.
Right now, some countries are being shocked to find out they have this hidden population that are moving around and nobody could tell who they are.
Okay, so we'll go to Alan, and then I'll tell the three other panelists, there's no need to continue that discussion. We get it, that there is a shock, there's no debate. We'll move on to some other topic after we hear Alan, but we'll privilege you to jump in if necessary. Unless somebody wants to make a statement after Alan, really urgent. Alan, could we hear you on this, because you raised your hand?
Yeah, just very briefly, Joseph, to complement what others have said. I think we must remember that the COVID crisis has come during a period where there were already very pronounced trends towards digitization.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, this is not a new thing. It's been happening. And if you look at some of the disruption that COVID has caused, for example, if you take this country, the United States, and you look at the retail sector, it is accentuating the trends that were there already. In terms of the transition towards digital shopping, digital payments. And I think in many of these areas, we have examples of countries that have moved out ahead far more rapidly than others in terms of public policy. And what is going to happen is that this will accelerate the trend, if you like, towards a more digital systems and connected systems, which raises issues of its own in terms of privacy, interrelationships, and so on. Thank you.
Okay, excellent. So now we all seem to agree that this is not a minor event that is going to be forgotten. The impact is going to linger, and in a way, there might be positive results from this shock, from this wake-up call. Maybe wake-up call not just for the governments, wake-up call for us as development community. Now, I'd like to take the panel a little bit more deeply into the evidence for impact. And in particular, we want to understand the nuances. When we talk about identity, you know, in the past, we've talked about digital identity, we've talked about legal identity, we've talked about service-oriented identity. How do you see the demand for identity is being nuanced? I mean, what are the priorities for these governments now? And will you think that identity is identity, they're going to demand identity, or there's going to be a specific type of identity that they're going to be asking for?